Our ever-expanding network means more coverage here, even for the channel. And now with the advent of Pittsburgh Golf Now, a part of the Now network of sites, that means golf coverage. That means maybe golf tips and tricks throughout our channel, as you already have seen Matt Geica and company putting together on Pittsburgh Sports Live. But it also means some golf conversation with some that cover golf for a living, that actually are in golf media. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and on this episode of Mic Drop, which is a part of Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Golf Now, I'm going to be joined by the Golf Channel's own Samantha Marks, who does some digital work for the Golf Channel, and I see her all over Twitter providing tips to others, so I figured I'd bring it here to our subscribers on the channel. And I will tell you, Samantha, as we bring you aboard, that I've tried to improve my swing from watching some of your videos. I know you told me that I had the grunt down, but I have too much of a baseball Albert Pujols swing there, so I do need to fix that. But thanks for joining me here. How you doing there? I know you're keeping safe down there in Florida. It looks like you have a nice situation going. I saw we turned the camera around. I saw before you had a nice kind of feng shui painting or something going on there.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm
Things are well
that.
here. It's not as crazy, I don't think, as people think as far as a day-to-day life in Florida. Like, you don't really notice it as much on going about your day-to-day life. But yeah, things are good here. Glad to help. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you on here for sure. Did you get any time on the course today?
I did not. I was going to play yesterday, and right when I woke up, it was pouring. So I didn't play today. Just probably going to look to play tomorrow.
Okay.
It's like a little 9-hole action.
Yeah, I'm always jealous, I will say, when I see you out on the course, because I'm in media too, but I'm not able to just get on the course necessarily for a living. So as much as I enjoy it, I'm a little jealous of you right now. But I do kind of want to ask you, as we get things underway here, how did you get involved in what you're doing now with the Golf Channel in golf media? I know you played at Arkansas, so obviously you had the skills that not all of us in media possess to hone in on the golf craft. But how did you get started in your coverage now?
Yeah, so I started competing when I was 6. So I have a very long background, obviously, in golf competition, and I went straight from, junior golf to college golf, played 2 years at UNC Chapel Hill, transferred to Arkansas for the last 3, decided that I didn't want to pursue a professional career. And I started right out of college. 2 days after graduation, I was on air being a broadcast journalist, TV news reporter, anchor out in Colorado for Fox. Decided I didn't want to do that either, and that I wanted to get back into golf, but still on the media side. And this job opened up where me and my team work a lot more with website management, articles that are coming out, blogs that are coming out, managing that kind of content. And so it was really a good opportunity for me to, one, get home. This is where I'm from, in Orlando, but also kind of segue my way back into the golf world without having to play competitively. So that's kind of where I'm at. I've been here for a year and a half, and it's been really fun.
It does look fun, and you certainly have the ability there, and that background is nice to bring that together, having the broadcast journalism background as well, and being able to fall back on that. What made you not want to play professionally? Because obviously, if you're playing in 2 major programs and you get to that level, that could be a consideration for sure.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was always my plan up until about 6 months before graduation. And I was like, I don't know what to do because I don't want to do this anymore. And I think that the main thing for me was that I hated practicing, hated it. Like, I still to this day, if I could play a tournament every day, I would rather play golf than practice. And that's obviously not a way to sustain a professional career or get one started. And so I knew that just wasn't something that ultimately was going to make me happy in the long run. And I'm big on happiness and, doing anything in your power to achieve that for yourself. And I knew that wasn't something that was going to make me happy. So it was a pretty simple decision for me. Then I kind of had to tap into what I was actually studying, which was broadcast. And so that was interesting. You get through college, athletes get through college and they're just kind of doing their major to do it with no, athletes that are trying to go pro, not to say that they don't care about it, but it just has less weight when you know that's not what you're going to be doing in life. So then 6 months before I graduated, I went to my lead professor in journalism and I was like, 911, like I'm actually gonna have to look at getting a job. So he kind of told me straight up, like, yeah, you can do it, but you need to like put your head down and actually listen. And I was like, oh, yikes. So, it worked out for me and I was fine. Had a job lined up well in advance of graduation. And then when I went into broadcast, it was more so it was no sports. I mean, I filled in sports anchoring, but it was more so hard news. Like I was the news of the day reporter, crime, kids getting killed and talking to their families. And that it's just a lot to deal with right out of college. Definitely something that they don't teach you in school. How to have those conversations with other people, but also yourself and, checking in on yourself when you're alone in a new city and stuff like that. So that's kind of what led me to those two decisions.
Yeah, and that's definitely interesting because I've had a career in media and had a path in media, but I never had to go that hard news route. I have a lot of friends who did, and they ended up getting out of the business altogether because that just was too emotional, and they went home every day crying. So they didn't. It's almost like if you're a doctor in a way, you see death and sadness every day in what you're doing, and they just couldn't handle it. So I was fortunate to be able to stay up having to do that even when I was doing some news coverage with stations, but. Yeah, that's definitely interesting, and you certainly have had success at this point. Again, speaking with Samantha Marks here with the Golf Channel. Now, you mentioned that you didn't like to practice too much, which is interesting because golf is the one sport that you really do need to practice a lot, or at least play a lot. You do need to have repetition. I mean, I golfed when I was younger, not nearly as young as you when you got started. I mean, that is the path to have a chance at pro. I golfed in junior golf at my grandparents' country club when I was 12 or 13, and then kind of got out of it for a decade or so, and then got back into it for a couple years. And it's a very humbling experience where I sucked all over again. So it does take some practice and does take some skills. What would you say to the average golfer out there, or somebody that's looking to get better, somebody that hacks away and just sucks and is maybe trying to improve and wants to get better? Because I see a lot of those videos, and I would definitely recommend following you on Twitter. I'll give you that plug because you throw a lot of videos there in terms of your swing with different clubs and different courses, especially in your area. So that's something for people to keep an eye on. But what would you say to people? Because it appears to me, and I've gone through this too, where there's a lot of misconceptions out there. There's a lot of people who are doing the wrong thing in terms of trying to perfect their game. They don't know how to get started. Maybe they're just intimidated by the sport altogether, or drop off after they get humbled and suck for a day on the course.
Yeah, so I think there's two kind of ways to go about it. First, you want to talk about how to get your kids involved, because that's important as well. And I know that a lot of people come to me about that. Right. And I think the main thing for a kid is to just let them swing it as hard as they can. And you can figure out the logistics later. Like if they can make contact with the ball and hit it far and be excited about being there, that's what you really want as a kid. Now, is it the same as an adult? Kind of, but if you have any basis of any kind of swing motion, I mean, you can work with that. I definitely would recommend getting a lesson, getting 4 or 5 lessons from a PGA pro, a teaching pro, a country club pro. Somebody will be able to put you on the right track. But as far as things you can do at home, I think looking up swings of just people you like. I think people really play down the importance of visualization. Like I used to watch Adam Scott swing on a loop when I was younger because I was like, I want my swing to look like this. And what you watch and how you take things into your brain has a lot more impact than people think it does. You don't need to go out there and hit balls for 2 hours with no direction, because that's not going to get you anywhere. There's plenty
and I'm sure
of
you
apps
see
out
people
there.
doing that all the time. You just go into driving ranges, you see people just trying to crush it away and imitate maybe John Daly and just try to impress the girl around in the other booth, when that's really not going to get you anywhere if you're actually trying to get better.
Right, exactly. And so Another thing that I see a lot is people will have these swing thoughts that they pulled out of nowhere, and then they'll hit one bad shot and abandon it. That is something that my dad struggles with a lot. And so I kind of got that from him, where you get impatient and you're hitting like 4 or 5 good shots and you hit one bad one and you're like, oh, doesn't work. So I think that's something that you really need to, if you're only focused on tempo that day, tempo on the way back and hitting it as hard as you can on the way down, you need to commit to that. It's more so like the average weekend golfer gets way too upset about sucking when they have no reason to be upset. Like if you don't practice and you play once a month and you're going out and you're shooting 95 and you're pissed, it's not how that works. Like you have to actually put in work, and go to the range with intention, go to the putting green with intention, work on drills. There's plenty of opportunities and things to look up online. You can find anything on Google. But when you go with a sense of direction, that's called practice. When you go to the practice range to just mess around, that's called messing around.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people messing around out there, and they think they're better than they are, or they think they're trying to perfect and get better here. Again, speaking with Samantha Marks of the Golf Channel, at Sam Marks GC on Twitter, where you can find some of these tips, and you can find some of those videos that she's putting out there almost on a daily basis there. Here, Mike Asti on Pittsburgh Sports Live and broadcast through Pittsburgh Golf Now. Now, the other end of it is even people that want to get involved in the game, and there was a different sensational period in golf from the late 90s, early 2000s, kind of when we were growing up with Tiger Woods, and that just phenomenon that brought so many more eyeballs to the sport and so many more people interested maybe in picking up a club than maybe wouldn't have before. Tiger is there now, but not nearly that same guy, and there was a period of time without him. What do you say in terms of golf's, I don't want to say issue, but how could golf maybe better market itself to the global masses? Or how would you maybe give a pitch to people out there who watch it occasionally when Tiger's playing, but Tiger's going to eventually retire? He certainly, his days of dominating are well behind him. And even though he won a major not long ago, it's not going to be that again. So he's wanting out now. What would you say to people that just watch for Tiger, just watch occasionally in terms of a sales pitch to maybe get more into golf, maybe even get more into golf playing, because some might be intimidated by maybe thinking they need money to be able to get into it? You mentioned lessons. Maybe it's the stereotype of a country club sport. I was fortunate to have that connection to a country club growing up. I don't know if you were, but not everyone is, obviously. So just your pitch to people out there in terms of getting involved in the game, and then maybe what golf could even do as well to better market its sport, because they've gone through periods where the ratings just aren't there, and it is a major sport. Actually, this was funny. I don't know if you saw this, but we had the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Challenge over 4th of July weekend, and you see talking about all these semi-joking forum on the ESPN broadcast talking about the different Joey Chestnut 13th championship. That would put him ahead of Yogi Berra and Bill Russell, and where he is with all these different athletes throughout history. And they didn't just have the major team sports. They also had Roger Federer and tennis and individual stars. But I didn't see Jack Nicklaus there. I didn't see Tiger Woods there. Golf literally got snubbed on a joke of a graphic on a national network. It just was funny, but in a way that's negative for golf. I'm sure golf would like to be there in the eyeballs tennis got that golf didn't receive. So what could golf maybe do better to get there and get to more fans? And then how could you help sell it to more people out there?
I think something that golf professionals are doing a very good job of right now, and I think it kind of started in the past year, is being more present on social media. I know that gets people to be fans of, Bryson posting something just out of pocket, and you're like, oh, maybe I'll like this guy now. Or,
right.
Tiger hasn't really ever been on social, but you look at somebody smaller like Eddie Pepperell, or, people like that who tweet something funny, and that makes me want to watch them. And I think that it comes down to people who are following that person on Twitter. If they like their content, they need to watch the sport. I think that a lot of people think it's boring, think it's, something that I can't even stay awake for, which, okay, maybe put it on in the background, take a nap. Like there's different, there's different things that that golf can do, and I think it's important to get into the game in some capacity, whether that's going to the range, whether that's playing around with your friends. It is such a lifelong game that you can drink during it. You can be out in the sunshine, get some sun. You can hang out with your friends and actually talk. It's not like a sport like basketball where you go play a pickup game and you're sweating and yelling at each other the whole time.
Right.
I think that that's something that's very important that people understand about golf, is that it is such a community-based sport. You can walk up on the first tee and not know anybody, and you can leave with 3 new friends. And I think that that's something that's really cool about the game, and I think something that people need to understand.
Yeah, for sure. And Bubba Watts, another one who has been more recently active on social media and being a young golfer and Spieth, etc., to be able to be more out there to that young fan, because golf is a sport that at one point had the stereotype and had the perception that it was more for an older crowd and it was more for, say, our grandparents' age. But yet that's not the case anymore. And it went from Tiger Mania and the sensational period that was Tiger's prime to now. Any concern, though, that golf, you're obviously never going to expect to have the same period of Tiger in his prime, but any concern that golf maybe doesn't do enough in terms of marketing individual stars, or even, you talk about individual stars needing to market themselves more on social media, which is happening more and more. And I think even members of golf media like yourself being active on social media is a good thing for the sport as well. But there's not ever going to be that one guy again. Is it a negative for golf? Because this was a conversation before Tiger came back and won, that there are almost a bunch of young guys trading off majors every other tournament. So it'll be harder for the casual fan to have one guy they're going to follow. And many of the guys who maybe thought you were going to step in where Tiger left off, and even Phil left off, and say Rory McIlroy, he had that dominant run, won several majors, and then he fell off. Is that an unfortunate thing that golf is going through that the other sports don't go through? When you have a star in, say, the NBA or NHL or NFL, they're going to have good or bad seasons, but everybody knows them for the 15 years they're playing. It seems like with golf stars, if they aren't winning, they're kind of out of the marketing of the sport.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think that that is a challenge that golf faces, but you have to look at it, and you can look at it the way that you said. You know, there's so many young players kind of shuffling through majors, shuffling through events. But you also have to consider there's hundreds of PGA Tour pros, and there's how many NBA teams, there's how many NHL teams, there's how many, NFL teams that, you can have a run like the Golden State Warriors did, or the Patriots, or Rory did. And there's just not anybody right now that's dominating. And I do think that that's something that the sport lacks. If you look at even women's golf, nobody really has dominated the scene like Michelle Lee did a few years ago, right? And that's something where the LPGA has kind of taken a hit. When there's somebody that's dominant, no matter what sport it is or what it is, obviously people are going to watch to see it. And so I think you even look at like Jordan Spieth when he had that run. He was the golden child, right? Everybody was waiting on him to kind of continue that run, and whatever's going on with him now, we don't even need to get into that.
Right. But, didn't happen. Yeah. Yeah.
But for exactly like you said, like there's not anyone who's steps up every week and is going to win and performs like they're going to win, like Tiger did. But I do think also you could look at it as Tiger was a very unrealistic expectation to put on a player. And I think it's one thing that's really cool about golf is that you can have somebody like Nick Watney go out and win, or Adam Hadwin go out and win, Eddie Pepperell go out and win, who you don't hear about, who's not at the top of the leaderboard every week, but is going to make a significant impact on the sport based on maybe they're really quotable, maybe they did something funny on the course, and that's the kind of thing that people need to see and keep coming back to.
Yeah, and I also do think that there was an unreasonable expectation not only put on other golfers, but even put on Tiger Woods. The whole conversation of whether or not he's back even after he finally won a 15th major is a little bit absurd, because it's unreasonable regardless of scandal or anything, just on age alone and wear and tear. He's never going to be what he was before, but having him just on the course is a positive for golf, especially as a contender. But people saying, it means nothing when he was finishing a runner-up after sitting out for years. that's still a major accomplishment. No, it wasn't what happened in the early 2000s, but that's never going to happen again. Again, here, Samantha Marks of the Golf Channel here, Mike Asti on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Now, Samantha, I do want to get you out with this because this is what's going on right now, and I open talking about how things are for you down there in Florida. You're in Orlando. You're in a bubble of Florida where the NBA is going, and there's concern about how they're going to get through that because Florida's certainly had a roller coaster ride in terms of cases and dealing with the coronavirus. What are your thoughts on golf in general dealing with the coronavirus? Because I actually live in a state here in Pennsylvania that in the beginning of COVID, people were allowed to fish, but our governor did not permit us to get on any golf course at all until about a month ago. And that then opened up, and I don't know if there was a confusion on the fact that you can go out there, as you said, and golf alone. You don't need to be around everybody. You don't need to have everything be a tournament in terms of golf. We're able to get there now, and I do see that most clubs, whether it be a public course or a country club, they're not having the pin removed. They're having a little foam in the cup there for the putts. I'm trying to be as safe as possible. I know we couldn't even actually have more than one or couldn't have two people in a cart unless they lived together for a long period of time. So just in terms of speaking on people that maybe like golfing but are concerned about getting out there during the coronavirus, is this a sport that can be done safely? And what are your thoughts on measures from clubs to country clubs to tournaments to even the PGA Tour in terms of what is being done? Because the PGA Tour has experienced positive test results even recently, and we actually heard from Tiger Woods, who took a little bit of a break, that he is actually going to play coming up at the next tournament. That's kind of a major development to have him out there in the midst of everything. So, but it's a kind of a confusing sport because you can do this alone. It maybe feels safer than some of the team sports out there, but some of these states haven't necessarily agreed, and they tried to shut it down at different points, thinking that it couldn't be safe.
Yeah, I think that I think you hit the nail on the head there. That there was just maybe people in government authorities maybe don't understand the game. I mean, we've been out playing. Our course was closed for, I'd say, about a month here as well, but it was more so, you come back and same thing like you said, you can only ride two people in a cart if you live together, but you can always walk. And that's what me and my family and friends do a lot. So you'd really kind of have to try to be within 6 feet of somebody when you're walking a golf. Like, you would have to be kind of like, rubbing up on them, which is not something you want to do on the golf course anyway. But I think that what clubs have done, like you said, with the foam noodles in the cups and stuff like that, it's great. I think it's something that everybody's gotten used to now. Like, I don't think anything about it anymore when the pin is in and putting with it. I don't think anything about it.
I did have a ball bounce out on the pin, I will admit. It happened to me, and I knew it was going to happen to me, and yeah.
I miss hearing the ball go in the hole, I will say that.
Right.
But I think that as far as what the PGA Tour has done, I think that golf is one of those sports that made sense more than if you look like, obviously the NBA took much longer to come back and is coming back now. You look like the NBA, team sports where you're more so like really close together. Yeah. That's just like common sense that golf would make more sense, right? And I think that the way the PGA Tour has handled it, I think that says enough, that Tiger feels safe enough to come back. I mean, he's been obviously concerned about his health. Everybody's concerned about their health, but he's concerned about his health more so in the past. Has sat out tournaments for various different reasons. And so I think it says a lot about his comfort level in the PGA Tour and how they're handling that health and safety plan. It's interesting how often that health and safety plan is being revised. I feel like every few days we're getting, another email where it's like, oh, this has happened, or oh, this is what we're doing now. And I think that it's great that they're being so cautious. I don't know when fans will be allowed back. That's one thing. But then again, you have to look at, like, I don't know when concerts will happen again, or when a crowded bar will happen again, let alone a PGA Tour event. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I think they've done a great job, just based on the fact that we're still playing. I think there was a little bit of concern there when people started to test positive on site and people were saying, whoa, we need to pump the brakes. But, you pump the brakes at every single positive test, like we're never going to get back.
Right. I mean, nothing is going to be 100% effective. It is one of those things where it's physically impossible right now without a vaccine to be 100% effective for anybody in any line of business, certainly for sports. So you don't feel any concern out there being on the course?
No, not at all. Like, I think it's one of the safest places I could be, let alone, I mean, for physical health, for mental health, getting out there and getting out, actually.
Mental health for sure. Very
Yeah.
freeing. When I was stuck in quarantine and doing a home studio for 2 months, I couldn't even get out on the golf course when the weather was nice. That was rough. When I was long walks around the neighborhood, people probably looked at me like I was weird. Now I can actually go out and do something. But there was a misconception for a while, I feel like, by government officials, because there was a period where you could go fish, you could go kayaking, you could do all these other individual activities. Even some tennis courts were permitting people to go there, but not golf. So that at least seems like maybe we're further along than maybe somebody talked to some of these governors and said, people can golf. It doesn't have to be a tournament every time. It doesn't have to be a foursome. You don't need to all ride in one cart. And there's no reason why you should be crowding somebody unless somehow you both have the same shot and you're paired together, which is almost impossible to believe.
Right. Yeah. It was interesting how my club now, I've been a member of the same country club for 20 years maybe.
Oh, wow.
And since we moved here. And so it was interesting how at the beginning you could only ride single carts. And it's funny how now you can ride together. They're letting people ride together, but nobody wants to anymore because it moves so much faster. And everybody, gets their own space. And you don't have to worry about like going over here and picking up somebody else's ball and going over here. So it's been funny, especially with like my dad's group. They're like, we're not going back so I'm not riding with anybody ever again. Coronavirus or not, more so just a speed thing.
It does actually speed things up because I've been out there with a bunch of friends and we all had our separate carts and we've also done the one cart thing. And it does allow to be able, okay, I'm gonna go over here and I'll be there and I'll wait for you and then you can go get to me rather than have to wait for people and wait for their shot. So it does kind of speed things up. Do you expect this current new normal for golf to be a permanent thing, a temporary thing? Not that you know and can get in their heads, but what do you think the PGA Tour especially's mindset maybe is in terms of keeping this up with the flag and the pin and the foam and even all the rules around with these different clubs? Do you feel like, just from even talking with people that maybe that are leaders of your club, do they like it? Do they not? Do you think this is going to be a permanent thing, or this is just what they're doing now until this kind of washes away and maybe this time next year we'll be back to where we were?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess is my
sure. That could be possible.
I don't think that can be a permanent thing. I mean, not raking a bunker, not touching the pin, that's not like, it just doesn't feel right. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I do think even before coronavirus, nobody really thought about touching a rake that maybe 100 people have touched that day, but that nobody ever thought about that. I never thought about it. I played golf for 20 years.
You've touched rakes that millions of people have probably touched at this point.
I was only thinking about not getting fiberglass in my hand when I touch a rake. It had nothing to do with getting germs on my hand. And I think that there's some kind of risk that you assume when you do anything. Right. And people are so scared right now about doing anything, about going anywhere. I probably have just as good of a chance of getting in a car accident on my way to the store. You know what I mean? So it's all about looking at, obviously you need to be safe. I'm not saying wear a mask, do that,
Gotcha. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
But I think there's some kind of risk you have to assume in order to get back to your normal life. And I think it'll be interesting to see what clubs do, to see, obviously the PGA Tour, they can pull out the pins and it's not spreading as rampant as maybe we thought it was. So there are ways to do it. Everybody's just going to have to be more careful. This is something we've obviously never seen before. So it's going to take some adjusting.
Absolutely. Well, Samantha, I definitely appreciate you joining me here and providing some knowledge and maybe some tips and tricks to some people out there who are getting started and just the average golfer hacking away, and then also kind of talking about your journey and what's going on right now. Because I do think that golf sometimes already has people intimidated to try the sport, and now this certainly can help things. So if you want to golf, if you were interested in golfing, even if you just go casually, there are ways to do it safely, even in the midst of the world we live in, and that should not be your only deterrent. And there's a lot of fun golf to be watching. I also think that having Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and paired with Tiger and Phil was a great thing for golf. That was a whole weekend where everyone was talking golf. also talking some football, but they were talking golf, and maybe more of that with known athletes having those kind of one-off tournaments would help market golf, because maybe football fans that didn't like golf tuned in for Brady and Peyton that otherwise wouldn't have watched Phil and Tiger golf. So that was, I think, a big plus for the sport for sure. Tell people where they can find you in terms of anywhere, anything you're promoting out there, any upcoming videos you have, and of course your Twitter.
Yeah, so I kind of, me, I just post videos as I play. It's nothing ever really scheduled. I could probably be more organized about that. But my cat is currently biting me. Sorry. So you can find me.
Well, you can show the cat. Yeah. Hi.
He wants to say hi.
Hi. What is your cat's name?
Taco.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So you can find me on Instagram at Samantha S Marks, MARKS, or at Twitter at SamMarksDC. So yeah, and it's really fun to talk to all of you guys, and I love talking golf, and I feel like I'm pretty average at it. I like to make jokes, so that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, golf and jokes is a good follow right there. I definitely will attest to that, and it's provided me with some lessons that I need to maybe take ownership of more often. And I definitely definitely think that your journey has been a plus for golf in general. So I'm glad to meet Taco as well. But yeah, Samantha, thanks for joining me. And again, to all of you out there, make sure to hit us up on the family of networks at Pittsburgh Sports Now, Pittsburgh Hockey Now, Steelers Now, WV Sports Now, as well as now Pittsburgh Golf Now, as we ventured into the golf scene of our Now network of coverage. And follow us on Twitter at PGH Sports Live on Twitter. That was the Golf Channel Samantha Marks. You can find her at Sam Marks, MARKSGC, as she said. And I don't know if Taco has a Twitter or Instagram himself yet, but I will follow that one too if we can get that out there. Maybe create that.
I do not believe in making your animals Instagram.
Okay.
Don't do that.
All right, don't do that. I think Taco would probably go viral though, but
right?
he is. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks.